Morning guys and welcome back to the channel. It has arrived, the San Martin SN0111 made of, well, most of it's grade 5 titanium. There's a couple of bits of grade 2 titanium. What's the difference and why would they use two grades of titanium? Well, I'm trying to find that out. Hopefully I'll have found that out by the time I finish producing this video. If I haven't, then head down to the video description and hopefully I will have put the reason in there. But anyway, it's still a titanium diver made by San Martin. Is it any good? Well, we're about to find out. Lots to get through. Oh, and there's a bonus watch at the end. They sent me two watches. I'll show you this watch briefly at the end, but really I'm going to be focusing on this one. Right, and here is the watch in question, the almost all titanium San Martin SN0111 on the official store on AliExpress. There is a disclaimer explaining that there are some internal elements inside this watch that are made of stainless steel. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe they just couldn't make some parts out of titanium. But yeah, the vast majority of this watch is made of either grade 5 or grade 2 titanium. And yeah, it feels very, very light. And all the external elements are definitely made of titanium. So I suspect it's maybe some parts in the case, maybe something underneath the rotating bezel. Who knows? But yeah, it is basically grade 5 and grade 2 titanium. But what is the difference? Well, before I start my review of this watch, we're going to head back to school to learn about titanium. Welcome, kids. Today we're going to be learning about grade 5 and grade 2 titanium. What is the difference? Well, grade 2 is considered a commercially pure titanium, whereas grade 5 is 90% titanium, 6% aluminium, and 4% vanadium. Vanadium, never heard of that. Sounds like something out of a Marvel movie. But anyway, it is, yeah, basically an alloy, not a pure titanium. But what does that equate to when it comes to your wristwatch? Well, grade 5 is considered a more premium titanium material. I guess it's more expensive. I suspect it will be. So yeah, most premium watches made of titanium will be made of grade 5 titanium. It is more scratch resistant, it's stronger, it's more heat resistant, and it's more resistant to corrosion. But for some reason, San Martin have used grade 2 in the caseback or for the caseback and for some elements in the clasp. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe there's a technical reason. I'm trying to find out, and yeah, if I haven't found out by the time I've finished filming this video, I will try to put something in the video description below. Some other stuff I learnt while I was researching titanium. Did you know it's roughly 5 times stronger than stainless steel? It's more scratch resistant, rating at 350 HV on the Vickers scale, whereas stainless steel is roughly 175 HV, although don't forget both steel and titanium can be hardened, and some manufacturers put a coating on their watches, either steel or titanium, to make them more resistant to scratches. I don't think this watch has any coatings on it, but yeah, it is basically stronger and more scratch resistant than steel. It's obviously lighter, but I've got to say this watch doesn't look like titanium. I've been wearing it for a little while, and titanium, well, the material, but the titanium watches that I've experienced in the past, I've always had a sort of very dull grey, almost bluish look to them, but this looks really quite bright and looks so much like stainless steel. Yeah, I should hold it next to a stainless steel watch to compare, shouldn't I? Well, there it is next to an all stainless steel harness, and yeah, when you're looking at the watches like this, it looks very, very similar, although when you look at the bracelets, you can see, well, a fairly significant difference. The San Martin is starting to look a little bit more like titanium, but a lot less than I was expecting, I have to say. Yeah, unless you hold it next to a stainless steel watch, it just looks like stainless steel. It doesn't feel like it. There is a noticeable difference in weight compared to the harness. But yeah, I'm pleased it looks a little bit more like stainless steel, because that's one of the reasons why I tend to prefer stainless steel watches. I just prefer the colour and the brightness of them. So I'm definitely pleased with how the material looks, and yeah, how it looks a little bit more like stainless steel than some other titanium watches that I've experienced. But what about the finishing? Titanium is a more difficult material to work with. It is harder to finish, you know, to a sort of decent level. Polished surfaces in particular are very difficult to achieve. to a high standard and far more difficult than stainless steel. I can polish a piece of stainless steel with a cloth and some polishing compound and get a really, really nice mirror finish. Titanium is, yeah, a much more difficult material to work with. But I got to say, I mean, they finished this watch to an incredible standard. There is a little bit of streaking on the side of the bracelets, but the finishing on the case is, well, almost as good as it is on their stainless steel watches. The brushing is beautiful. It's a more coarse brushing than you would see on a stainless steel watch. But it's very nice and consistent. The transitions between the polished surfaces on the case and the brushed surfaces, really, really good. Yeah, it has exceeded my expectations. That was another one of my concerns, to be honest, not just the color of the material, but the quality of the finishing, and they have excelled. Definitely gone above my expectations for sure. And the bezel action is surprisingly good. I've said on a number of occasions that for some reason, and I don't know why, but dive watches that are made out of titanium tend to have, well, horrible feeling bezel actions. They tend to feel just a bit light and cheap and almost tinny to some degree. But I don't know how they've done it. Maybe it is the use of some stainless steel elements under this bezel, and I don't know that for sure. But this bezel action feels as good as most of their other watches. It feels incredible. It's super smooth. It feels fairly, well, high in terms of resistance. So there is a decent amount of resistance there. The clicks, I don't know if you can hear them. I'll get the watch closer to the microphone. They're beautifully crisp. Have a listen. Anyway, let's crack on with the rest of the review. The specifications, well, I've reviewed a couple of SN0111 watches before, and yeah, everything else seems to be pretty much the same, although this watch has a helium escape valve look, and it is a 300-meter diver, like the other SN0111 watches. The dial is slightly different. You've got some different print on the dial, but you've got the same ceramic bezel insert, the same piece of crystal. Everything else seems to be the same in terms of specifications: solid end links, solid links, screw pins. You've got this on the fly adjustment system clasp with the same mechanism. It feels, again, like the bezel action. It feels really nice to interact with. I mean, the clicks are super crisp and loud. It feels very nicely made, and yeah, I mean, everything else seems to be pretty much the same, although it's just, well, I guess the main difference is the materials used. Right, I'm just going to quickly charge up the loom so we can have a look at the initial loom burst. I'm not going to film the usual test because, like I said already, I've already reviewed a couple of SN0111s and filmed that test twice before. But yeah, it's a decent application by the looks of it. Loom filled into the applied indices. A good coverage of BGW9. Right, let's find out how much this thing weighs. So I've just taken a look at my review of the all stainless steel version of this watch, and set up for my wrist it weighs 148 grams. This has now been set up for my wrist and it weighs, well, look at that, less than 100 grams, 2/3 of the weight, basically. Unbelievable, incredible. Yeah, feels very comfortable on my wrist as well. I do tend to prefer my dive watches to have a bit of weight, a bit of presence to them. And yeah, this one is definitely lighter. Some people will appreciate that. I think I still prefer the weight that the all stainless steel version gives, that presence on the wrist. But yeah, this doesn't feel too light. Certainly doesn't feel cheap on my wrist. And yeah, it's just as comfortable as their other versions of this watch made of stainless steel. Now, San Martin are currently offering this watch with a PT5000 or SW200, and unfortunately you are going to pay a bit of a premium for all of this titanium goodness. Currently out of the sale, the PT5000 version costing $378 US. With an SW200, it's $552 US. Fingers crossed they discount this watch in the upcoming sale. And I've also asked for a discount code for this particular watch. So head down to the video description. If they give me one, I'll put it in there. Yeah, I'm not normally a massive fan of titanium watches, but they've done an incredible job of this one. They've made it look and feel more like a stainless steel watch, but with the weight of a titanium watch. Just incredible. Right, now it's time to turn our attention to this new SN0113. I've only got a couple of minutes to spend on this watch. Yeah, I think it's a good one though. It's almost a shame they sent me this watch alongside that titanium diver because, well, if it hadn't been for that titanium diver, I would have spent more time on this watch because actually, I think it deserves it. It is a proper new release, a brand new watch, the SN0113, a sort of vintage retro-inspired sports watch NH35. Decent specifications for this watch, so it's around $230 out of the sale. All the good stuff, sapphire crystal, 316L stainless steel, solid end links, solid links, screw pins, a milled butterfly clasp, and the links are not full sort of 10mm links, and I've managed to get a really good fit actually. Although just be warned, I've got an average sized wrist and I only needed to take out 2 links. So if you have a larger than average sized wrist and you're interested in buying this watch, perhaps message them and ask them for some extra links because, yeah, I don't think they've provided that many links for this watch. But it is, as you would expect, very nicely finished. It seems to be a new case from San Martin. I don't think I've seen this case before. Brushing and polishing, same as the bracelet. Center links are brushed, outer links are polished on the sides as well. Look, giving the watch, I guess, a slightly dressier look, polished bezel as well. Beautiful finishing, as you would expect. 100 meters of water resistance. It is a screw down crown and a screw down case back. There is a ghost position on this watch, sadly, because it is the NH35. There's no date complication on the dial, but good balance to the dial, 3, 6, 9 and 12 dial. You've got some of that sort of aged pigment or that fake patinaed loom, if you like. There is some loom on this watch. I'll show you the loom in a moment. But yeah, you've got a mix of sort of white print and that sort of fake aged print on the dial, which I know some people aren't particularly keen on, but it gives the watch, I guess, a more sort of vintage retro look to it. And yeah, the hands as well, quite sort of vintage and retro in design, a needle hand or a sort of sword hand, I guess, for the minutes, and an arrowhead hand for the hours, and a lollipop hand for the seconds. Yeah, very nice. Let me pop it on my wrist. And here it is then on my roughly average sized wrist. A good looking watch, a well proportioned watch considering they're going for that sort of vintage retro look. So you would expect it to have slightly longer lugs and be a little bit smaller in terms of its size, and yeah, perhaps a little bit more polishing on it as well. But yeah, very comfortable. Like I said, I've managed to get a decent fit. They're not full 10mm links. I'm generally not a fan of butterfly clasps, but this one's comfortable. The watch is comfortable. Yeah, I'm pleased with it. Right, let's take a look at the loom. Right, let's wrap things up then with a quick loom degradation test. C3 and BGW9 on this watch. The initial loom burst looks pretty good. And yeah, let's let the clock run down for 5 minutes and see how much it degrades. Right, the 5 minutes are up and the loom is still fairly visible. It's not actually a bad loom display considering it's printed directly onto the dial and they've included the orange pigment in some of the looms. So yeah, I'd say it's about average for most watches, below average for San Martin because on the whole their loom is generally very good. But yeah, I don't think you'll be too disappointed with the loom on this watch. Right, guys, as always, massive thank you from me to you for tuning in. I do really appreciate it. Happy shopping in this sale. It starts on the 12th of June, of course. I'll put some links in the video description to the watches featured in this video. And don't forget, if you've got any questions during the sale, email me, oldmantimegary@gmail.com. If you're going to use my links to buy your stuff, the least I can do is make myself available to answer your questions. Happy shopping, guys. Take care. You'll see me again very soon.